Here we go. We're live. Welcome, everybody, to the LIC podcast. I am Matt. That is Jose.
Oh, yes. It is me over here.
Here is Hannah.
Hello.
And back again is Kimmy.
Hi.
And today we watched 2018's Hereditary, one of my favorite horror movies. Maybe for just until today, because you might ruin it. So anyway, Jose, Kimmy, since you guys are fresh to the movie, why don't you take us on your initial
thoughts? For sure. Kimmy, take it away. Go first.
Oh no.
How you feeling?
How do I begin? Yeah, I don't know. I always, when I think about like telling people how I like a movie or don't like it, I always start with the rating, which is a no-no.
It's a no-no
in this podcast.
Don't you dare.
So, I liked it. I don't like horror films. I was not really afraid of this film. I don't know. I really don't know where to begin with it. Toni Collette's amazing. I guess that's the best way to start it.
Dude, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yes, she is.
I really can't think of one bad thing that she's done. And I was a little afraid to watch this movie just because I don't typically like horror films. Yeah. 10, can I do that? 10 out of 10 for Toni Collette.
You
That
can do
is
that.
allowed.
10 for
We'll
that.
Yeah, that's allowed.
I'm
yeah,
okay with that.
for sure.
Jose, what about you?
I thought the movie was very fun. It was a lot more fun than I was expecting it to be, especially because I really went out of my way to make sure to come into this one blind. I had no idea about anything about it other than its name. And, the word hereditary does sound kind of scary.
Yeah, freaks me right out.
Yeah, I mean, it only bodes bad omens. It means that you have some sort of bad disease that's coming to you, or some quirk that's been transcendent through time. Yeah, I mean, I thought it's causing me to think quite a lot, even as I'm sitting here digesting it. So that's a really good impression, good first impression from my perspective. All right, now to sling it right back to you, Matt. What makes you like it so much?
Oh man, okay. So maybe this requires like a little background of having watched, I don't know, 100 some odd horror movies and 5 good ones,
Mm-hmm.
But there's some of that to it. So all the really good horror movies, like the ones most people would agree, like The Witch, fantastic horror movie. This one, a couple more I'd sling in that group, but it's got like Babadook, like the horror movies that stand out are the ones that have the special things about them. Oh, you didn't like Babadook?
I have actually seen Babadook, and I was not afraid of that film either. I laughed watching Babadook. If I'm thinking about the correct movie,
Kimmy says that she doesn't like horror movies, but the actual problem is that Kimmy doesn't know what a horror movie is.
She doesn't know what she's actually afraid of.
Yeah.
No, she does. Kimmy is
know what I'm
afraid
afraid
of being buried alive and rape scenes. And if a movie has either of those things in it, in Kimmy's book, it's a horror movie.
That's true.
Yeah, Kill Bill 2, probably the scariest movie Tarantino has ever put out.
I know
Oh
we're here
my
to talk
God.
about Hereditary, but just to make sure I'm thinking of the correct film. Babadook, is that the one? Is that the one where there's a girl with a lawnmower?
No,
No.
it's the one about the book.
Oh
And
no, I
the-
haven't seen
The
that
child
one.
with
Never
the
mind.
book.
Never
Next on the
Damn it.
podcast.
Damn it.
That's a great
so,
one.
So this one's got this cool gimmick of having the miniature house and having that reference back and forth, and the intro shot brings you into the movie in that way. There's this constant interplay throughout the movie of having it be the miniaturized version and having us be looking at scenes as if we were looking at a miniature house from the side.
Right.
They were always framing it like that, and then you'd switch to this intense from face-to-face shots between the family, or these moments like that, and it's a cool theme that plays throughout the movie that I really like. I also really enjoy when the actors and actresses are fucking awesome at their job. So like Kimmy mentioned at the beginning there, that really helps. Also, it's got the it's got this quality about it where it doesn't play into the cliches of a lot of horror movies. So like there's no like I don't know, there's not any jump scares really. And when they're really trying to freak you out, they keep it really quiet and still. So yeah, I mean, I could go on probably forever, but I remember walking out of I don't know if we watched it in theaters the first time,
No.
but I remember just sitting, you know, kind of like you might feel now of like, man, what a cool like fucking story. Like, it's not often a movie, especially a horror movie, ends where like the bad guy wins, like in The Witch, where the devil kind of wins, and in this one, like it's a demon king from hell, one of the 8 demon kings, and he's like, yeah, I'm back, baby, I'm in this boy's body. Let's
This
rock and roll.
adopted boy's body.
Yeah, so you claim.
Clearly.
Yeah, very clearly adopted boy. Yeah,
But yeah,
a little
anyway.
miscasting there for sure.
Oh yeah, and that would explain why they don't know how old he is.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like adopted pets.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We think he's about 6.
Oh.
Or 26. 6 or
So,
26.
Hannah,
we
is
can't
this-
tell.
What number viewing is this one for you?
3.
Number 3.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And having such a seasoned view of the movie, what's your perspective on it?
This is also a favorite of mine, to be honest. I like that I don't know if ambiance is the right word, but this horror movie feels different enough to be memorable throughout it. My favorite things about this movie are, like Matt said, the ending. I think the ending is the notorious thing that horror movies fall short on across the board. It ruins a horror movie at the last moment. And I just love a horror movie that doesn't try to give a happy ending. Like, we escaped the worst thing you can imagine, and now everybody's fine and we're all happy. I like when they do that. I like when they give it a not necessarily happy, a creative ending, or even just like the bad guy wins. So that makes me really, really happy to see in a horror movie. And then also the decapitation scene. When I watched that the first time, I literally went, and I watch a
which
lot
one?
of horror movies.
Yeah.
You, the first
raft.
The main one?
Oh.
Oh no,
No,
one
the
with
car
in
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was like the flossing one or the.
Mhm.
No, I think that that's a breathtaking horror movie scene, honestly. I think it's so memorable. That's what everybody knows about this movie. That's what people remember about this movie, because they totally bait and switched us. They had us completely stressed out and worried about something else,
Mhm.
and then just bam. And then you kind of sit in shock for a minute with the main character, and I really enjoy that too.
Nice and quiet. Just sit
Mhm.
with it.
You just feel it because
It
you know
does-
why he's not moving.
Yeah, it's true because that section of the movie is the only horrific section of the movie that's mundane, you know? And also like the most striking really because it could happen to anyone, right?
Mhm.
I mean, there
Well,
was
was-
no ill intent per se about what happened, but it was still gruesome as hell, you know, and
Very
the
sudden.
repercussions and consequences that'll, you know, come alongside that.
I think it was Kimmy that made a comment in that moment of like, where'd that fucking pole come from or whatever.
No, that was Hannah.
Oh,
Hannah said, "Where the hell did the pole come from?"
That was
Right.
me.
No, that
It
was me.
not me.
It was me. I was
Oh.
saying like that was one random poll because
Yeah.
there was literally no other polls.
Yeah.
You know what
Did
I mean?
you
Like,
notice a minute prior to that where they teased you with it?
no.
Their car drove by in the camera scene and it's just looking at the pole. And if you look at the pole, there's the little symbol on
Oh,
the telephone
really?
pole on the scene, like as they were driving to the party.
You
or
mean the
whatever.
symbol, like that little coven
Like
symbol?
the
Yeah,
coven
the little
symbol?
like
Fascinating. No, I didn't realize that. I did see that they showed us the pole ahead of time, and all my times in safety
Okay.
classes from being a kid, I remember that's the reason why you can't pull the bus windows down all
Okay.
the way, is because idiots stick their head out and they get caught up on a tree, and that's not good for childhood development.
So
No?
now, if it's all right with you guys, we can start getting into the themes of the story.
Mhm,
So the most obvious one is predestination,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The concept of the Theracles story, and how if what you're telling me is true about this light pole situation, everything was pretty much orchestrated from the very beginning, almost to the even even to the degree that you could say the movie starts in medias res, wherein like the funeral of the grandma is already like the catalyst for the beginning of Paimon coming back.
Is payment.
Oh, payment. Okay,
Paimon.
sorry.
Paimon needs a
It's
pigeon
spelled
head.
Paimon, yeah.
That's
But
payment.
okay, well, yeah, payment. Oh, sure.
Before we get too far, though, I do want to get from everybody, like, what were your general feelings about that little girl, about Charlie in the beginning?
Sure. I mean, I said to you guys before Charlie had died that at that point, you know, quarter of the way through the movie, the most horrific thing was the way that hair and wardrobe had done her.
Oh,
yeah.
100%. Her mother was killing her
Duh.
slowly even before
Oh
the
my
decapitation.
goodness. Like,
That's not what I mean.
girl, cut her hair different or
Yeah,
something,
honestly.
you know? Like, I get
Especially-
that she's a different girl. I get it, you know? But, like, give her some layers.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no need for you to already ostracize her aesthetically alongside whatever, you know, issue she might have because of whatever disability. It doesn't even... I'm confused too because throughout the movie she's in that special class, right? But at the same time she doesn't showcase any sort of like regression in terms of like her behavior or her educational capacities. She just, you know, looks a little abnormal. I mean,
So I
at the
think-
most.
I think what that this is so we'll have to discuss this in
Please,
detail
please, let's go at length because
as we go into
Oh.
it. But I think
I see.
that Paimon was inside of her.
Right.
Paimon now,
Well-
huh?
Shit. You fucking you bait and switched me.
Well, they
Right?
hint
So and
to-
that's why she was all like sort of deformed because Paimon wants a male vessel.
Oh, right. And she did mention that her grandma stated that she wanted her to be a boy. Right. So it could.
Mm.
And her grandma also loved the shit out of her. Why? Because Payman's like
Was actually
the grandma
Yeah.
wanted to feed her
Oh,
when
that makes
she
a lot
was
of
a
that, I mean,
baby.
that makes a lot of sense because at the end they don't even refer to Peter as Peter. They're like, Charlie, you're safe now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Got
So-
it.
I mean, it's just confusing to me as to why it would be that they wouldn't just use Peter from the get-go if he was the firstborn son.
Because she wouldn't let him.
yeah,
She
she-
straight
she
up
didn't
says,
let-
Toni Collette says, she's like, I wouldn't let
Oh.
my mother have my son, but then, because like when she's in that grieving circle, she's like, I wouldn't let her have my son, but I let her have my daughter.
Okay.
And I remember thinking to myself, even as someone who's just like listening to this lady talk for the first time, like, what do you mean you let her have your daughter? Like,
Yeah.
At that point I was tired.
Yeah.
I kept her away from one kid. I can't do
Yeah. I can't do two.
I had one to raise. He was so whiny. The other one
He
didn't
was
cry at
so
all.
whiny.
That's the other thing is the reference to she said you never cried even when you were a baby. Which
Oh.
sorry, go ahead.
oh no. Okay, so I actually just I'm rewatching American Horror Story season 2 Asylum. And there is that section in there with the little girl, Jenny, the little teeny girl who like murders her mom or murders her friend and then murders her like brother or sister and her mom. You know, and her mom says the same thing about her. She's like, you never cried. Honestly, I
Mm.
watched that episode this morning, and to hear that a second time today, I was like, whoa.
Classic Hell
interesting.
King symptoms.
Mhm.
Oh, you're
I'm
fucking
next.
possessed by a hell demon. That's what you are.
I mean, that's exactly what I thought of. I was like, well, clearly it's a demon. Like,
Yup.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, how I feel now, because it's like the concept of predestination, in my personal opinion, just dampens the situation a little, just because I'm used to people having at least some modicum of free will in relation to how they go about being, you know, fighting against a supernatural horror like in this situation, right? But I mean, at the same time, it makes sense if the whole movie is like you know, like a meta theme in itself, right? In the sense that everyone is a doll in the same way that her mom is like creating them in that room and stuff like that. Like everything is just a scene predestined, or at least you know, premeditated, if not
Mhm.
predestined, in order to be able to keep all of these things from occurring. My question is, were there any cultists at the party? You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
do you recall any sort of like cultists at the party that would then cause her to get the peanut allergy? You know, because the issue with these predestination things for me is just the hinging on coincidences, right? In order to be able to maintain the entire strata of this was all meant to be kind of situation, right?
Well, maybe you'll like the little touch of the animal on the road, right?
Hmm.
I don't know. Could have been a cultist.
Oh yeah, the carcass just in
Right.
the middle of the road. I could see that for sure.
by the
Nudging predestination along, you
Mm.
know?
Right by the pole. So that's where he would have to swerve.
Do you think they hint at the fact that like it's often that Charlie gets accidentally hit with nuts or something? Because they like even mention as she's eating that chocolate bar, like, are there nuts in there? And she's 13 years old. Like, it all depends on when you develop your nut allergy, right? Because like it doesn't have to be as a child, but
Yeah, maybe
Like
there
the
were
way that
multiple
there's-
attempts.
yeah, maybe the way that they're super worried about it, it's almost as if it's happened enough times, right? And maybe it happens enough times because I don't want to say his name wrong. Is it Payman?
Payment.
Payman? Because Payman's trying to escape.
Well, Genshin
know?
Impact, man.
There he
Yeah,
is,
then-
Payman.
You know,
What's
it's
up, bro?
interesting too because he died, or Charlie died in a way where her head was removed, and so I'm wondering if like they're like, well, yeah, maybe there's something to the peanut thing, but maybe they're like, well, we got to take the head, we got to get the head off of there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what's
head
the se-
removal
what's the
thing.
re- what's what does the removal of the head represent? Maybe I'm like trying to remember like the illustration of payment that they show in the book, and if like there's any connotation of like headlessness there. I'm like, is that just a happy coincidence? You know what I mean? And then once you find like a method of killing, you have to keep it pretty straight for 3 killings in a row in order for payment to come back. Like, you know, like what's the what are the satanic protocols in these situations?
What
you know?
are the rules?
Yeah. When you summon a king from hell.
What do you suppose is the significance of the fact that Charlie, when she's alive, is always making little toys and drawing people?
Maybe it's like Payman, like exhibitioning like vessels for himself. What would I want to be? This kind of body, yes, with a Coke can head and a paperclip arm.
That girl at the party does say that she gets drawn by Charlie, and she's like, she made me look retarded. And it's like, well, maybe if what you're saying is true, like Payman was thinking about, like, if I inhabited this vessel, what would I do to it?
What would I look like?
I'd probably come out looking like this. Yuck. Next page.
Oh, interesting. So do you think that there'd be like that? Yeah, like what you're saying. It's like it's trying to think about like what would be the process in taking over somebody else. But that doesn't make any sense either, though, because I mean, isn't it hereditary, right? In the sense that the mind has to be that of a female, but the vessel has to be that of a male, which then creates the symbiosis necessary for payment to be able to overtake the whole situation.
The mind has to be female?
Well, yeah, because Charlie, it's Charlie's mind inside of Peter's body, which then allows payment to be able to be overtaken entirely.
No, but it's
Something
the
like that.
inhabitant, though. The inhabitant is like the hell demon, who is a male. The reason Charlie is all kind of deformed looking is because the male demon, or at least considered a male demon, is in a female vessel.
Oh, so it's coming out deformed in that way because it was supposed to come out. If it would have came out male, it would have looked normal. Then you're saying,
Probably.
but with
Probably sexy.
but with just an absolute stunner.
Aren't the angels supposed to be beautiful? If he's like a demon king of hell, he's probably one of the fallen. Right?
Yeah, right.
Lucifer
And
was
usually
supposed to be the most beautiful one of all.
And usually the original angels keep their how they look,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Right. Yeah.
It's tough to say.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like, yeah.
I mean, that's science. I don't
what?
know.
Yeah.
So Annie kind of ruined it for Peter then.
Yeah, and what religion does that come out of? Like this whole payment situation. Like,
I don't think that. I mean,
is it just like a straight up like paganism kind of situation? You know, because
Sure.
that
Probably.
that book that the grandma had was very, very like generalized spiritualism.
Yeah.
You know,
It
like,
looks like
oh,
she
really?
handwrote it
Invocations.
herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like she handwrote it herself.
Yeah. Almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's folklore folk horror ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does have a folk horror vibe.
There's nothing in any religious texts that I'm familiar with that have anything to do with demon kings and hell and moving vessels and
Okay, so if it's to be believed, the females at that griefing session are the witches, and the men are mesmerized, or
I
like.
think they're just followers of Payman.
Yeah.
Well,
they
I mean,
are.
like in that invocation at the very end, right? They said that like your powers allow us to like bewitch men or whatever, and like do like allow them to do their bidding. Like
Yeah.
so, like the females have are in given the power through payment that then makes those naked guys essentially be
Maybe
like
they just
they're
mean men
thralls,
as
essentially.
in humankind, like people.
That's what I got too. Yeah,
Okay.
like they just get powers from following Payman, so they like make sure to keep his vessel nice and clean and help him out along the way, and then they get the bennies.
Got it. So in this situation, then it said Queen Lay at the end. Was she the last good vessel of payment? Like,
Yeah, I'm not sure if like maybe she was just like the top of the hierarchy of the cult. She was like the caretaker of, the vessel. It happened to be like in her family. Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe tease that apart.
It makes me wonder what happened like with I'm sorry, I can never remember Tony Collette's name in this movie.
Annie.
Annie's dad and brother. Do they have anything to do with it?
Yeah,
No,
so
like-
that whole spiel she gave at the first grief session, like
Yeah, what does she
greatly detailed. Okay, so I hope I remember this right, but basically her what was it? Her
dad.
That's the part that we keep
Had-
forgetting. I'm gonna Google it.
Some
No, her
sort of
dad had
psychosis that
depression.
caused him to starve himself.
Intense depression, and her brother was schizophrenia.
Yeah, but then she mentions that her brother, that it was her brother,
Her
right?
brother blamed her mother,
For
accused
trying
her of
to
putting
put people
in him.
inside of him. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why he killed himself.
Got it. So he tried to keep himself like if we're gonna maintain the consistency of the story, he figured out that he was trying to be made the next vessel for payment
Hmm.
and killed himself before he could become fully possessed.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, the hereditary thing might in fact be like a family line thing. Like we gotta move them through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like
'Cause there was
payment gives you
also-
only so many females before you're like, okay, like you gotta put me inside of me.
Yeah,
Like,
I can't do this.
Yeah. yeah, I can only stand to be misgendered so many times before.
I had to look it up because I remembered it being something kind of strange. So Annie says that her father dies of starvation because he had psychotic depression.
Yeah. So is that like, can we assume that had to do with like a ritual that her mom did that then caused him to, do that to himself?
Mm.
Either onto himself or maybe he like witnessed his wife doing a ritual onto his son.
Something like that. That's true because we can.
like
It's obvious that magic in this world is very unruly, right? Like
Mhm.
it kind of seems like much like lightning. If you touch it, it'll just automatically like take it upon yourself. Because I mean, the most bummer death, in my opinion, was the death of the dad because he
Yeah.
seems to be the most innocent, out of all of them in relation to him having no part in it whatsoever.
I
you
also
know?
don't understand why he caught fire. I don't.
I think that just I think that's just like it's a good Payman, the trickster god. So like the idea of like she convinces him to throw the book in the fire,
Mhm.
and then like
But he
or
doesn't.
he won't do it, and so
Yeah.
she throws it thinking it's gonna burn her,
Mhm.
and it burns him instead. And then she has the complete.
Well, I mean, he is the god
Mhm.
of mischief, right? So I mean, he's a Loki kind of character.
well, then
I mean,
if
kind of spirit.
right, does he then control her from that point on? Because we see her go from
Yeah, she like
intense pain to like mental break, or
Yeah.
like now she's just a puppet because then now she can fly.
yeah, she's got 100%
Well,
100
yeah.
acro and 100 sneak. Yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah, her sneak. Ooh.
Yeah.
I gotta say, you, it makes
Mm.
a horror movie much less spooky if you crack jokes the whole fucking time.
Oh, the
also
movie
much more
brings it on
fun.
itself. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The movie totally brings it on itself because they made it so you could see her right away. You
Mhm.
know, like if they're trying to spook me, that's the wrong way to go about it. Because all I can think of at that point is, unfortunately, I mean, like maybe it is a defense mechanism in terms of like using humor to dampen horror, you know. But the moment that I'm in on the scare so quickly, yeah, it automatically just be like,
Mhm.
whoo, so quickly, like in microseconds just dulls away, and in half a second I have a joke for whatever is happening already. You know what I mean? It's like,
What scares you? Does anything scare you? Nothing in film, I'm sure, but like, is there an idea
I
or?
think war scares Jose a little bit.
Yeah,
war
war-
films scare him a little bit.
war makes me very emotional, you know, just because of the fact that it's such a it's such a highly empathic situation, especially as a man, because I mean, I know that I would just be fucking thrown in the meat grinder if necessary in that way, you know, where like that's genuine horror. And to parallel that to this movie, I would say that actually is one of the reasons why the pole scene is so striking and, you know, such hook of the movie, is because that falls right within adult fear, right? It's like that could happen to literally anyone
Yeah.
for any reason whatsoever.
Mhm.
And you don't mean for it to happen, but it's still, you know, it's still a terrible, you know, and like almost universally evil act. You know what I mean? Even if there's no malice in genuine, like it still just feels eminently evil. You know what I mean? The fact that someone would just lose their head in that way,
Mhm.
you know, and yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, the concept of a lady like holding herself by the corner of a, you know, of a room, you know, while she's inspecting her kid or whatever it is, you know, like,
That kind of Charlotte's Web situation she had going on with herself.
yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then the fact that she didn't even make a pitter patter, you know what I mean? As she was like going through like 100% sneak. Are you kidding me? That's 100 sneak.
That
Like,
probably comes with the soul of the Demon King.
yeah,
You get plus 100 sneak, plus
it
100.
actually, the dissonance of that situation actually killed my horror because it didn't meet my expectation, right? Like
Mhm.
when I watched her scatter through, I was expecting the sound, you know what I mean? And that sound is so visceral, you know what I mean, to both real life, because I mean, I have a little bit of a fear of mice and stuff like that, and that's the sound that they make when they scurry places and things like that. So it's like, so like that meeting of viscerality with supernaturalness, I think is a you know, a better threading in terms of like keeping me more tense, you know.
Mhm.
But the moment that they go, it, because it looked like she was swimming in air.
I was
almost.
just going to say the thing that got me about that scene wasn't even that, like, you know, her sneak was at 100. It was that she didn't do what you typically see, I guess, in a horror film, which would have been like crawling on the walls like a spider or crawling along the floor, like whatever. She literally looked like she was swimming
Yeah, doing like
in the
like,
air.
doing like the full on like leg stroke situation to
Yeah.
like go from one room to the next, you know. So it's hard, right? Because I can understand from a creating of a movie, and you want to buck tropes, you want to
Mhm.
buck cliches, you want to be able to create a new experience for people, right? But at the same time, the issue with horror is the fact that it's almost an evolutionary ingrained thing, you know. In order for me to be able to feel horror, it has to strike at things that like the little ape inside of me is still crouching, you know, in a small corner about. And when you try to, you know, circumvent what could be considered a cliche 100%, right, with the kind of situation seen in a million billion movies, right, it still breaks me because I am, unfortunately, as a human, a creature of like expectations, you know what I mean? Like there are particular things that I'm expecting will happen, you know, when this or that happens, even in a horror supernatural aspect. And when it's broken, the dissonance takes me so far away from the horror aspect, especially if it's not like re reinforced with something else. You know what I mean? Like if she would have swam, you know what I mean, horizontally and then appeared right behind him, you know what I mean? Like in some sort of like quick flashing situation, okay, maybe then like there would be something else to it, you know. But like it was just such in passing, you know, because the scene wanted to keep building itself. He was walking through the house and oh.
I didn't find it particularly scary when I saw it the first time, but
Mhm.
it does something to like the tone of the scene to keep it quiet. So yeah, that's I totally hear you.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because again, I can understand from the creator's perspective wanting to do something different. I respect them from wanting to do so. But it's tough because it isn't like, the only kind of horror that I give like that kind of thing a pass to is like cosmic horror, because it's so far out there, you know what I mean? And like the vacuum of space, like the quietness of everything, okay, I can see that. But I mean, like if we're dealing about things on Earth, and even if they are spirits on Earth, you know what I mean? Like there's still a certain expectation that I have about it, right? That if not met, and unfortunately kills the scariness. It's such a weird thing, right? Like where you would imagine that like less the more unexpected it would be, the more it would increase the horror, but it actually inverts it in some way for me.
Bummed.
Yeah.
I'm so incredibly bummed that
That he didn't get scared.
no, not that he didn't get scared, but well, I don't think we'll ever actually scare Jose with anything.
Oh,
I
don't
don't-
give up so early.
Yeah,
Right.
I wouldn't be afraid of that. I'm sure there is something out there that's going to get Jose, and I think that you're not thinking of the right path for it.
Oh,
You
I'm
have
sure I'll
you
be
have to
surprised.
definitely probably take some like back alleyways to try to
Yeah,
figure
right.
something out that would freak him out. But I'm sure it's there. Yeah.
Someday.
I also didn't think this movie was as scary as I thought it would be. I think part of it's because I just don't hold anything aside for ghosts. Like that doesn't freak me out. Like the idea of her summoning a spirit. Like my initial thought also was like, well, who knows if it's your daughter? You're in this old ass, craftsman house. Who else? Who else? Girl, who else has died in here? Like, who are you about to bring back? You know.
But it's not Ghost, it's Demon King Payman.
Correct. Yeah, but like in my head, I was already thinking
Demon King
something-
Payman.
I was
Yeah.
thinking something
Demon
much more
King
nefarious
Payman.
Mhm.
to begin with. Like a ghost who just wants to f with them to f with them, rather than like their plan all along.
It really does kind of highlight though the like how important that ending was for the rest of the movie to be good.
Yeah.
Like because you're right. Any
have to
other
finish the
like
movie.
silly ghost ending would be pretty lame and underwhelming. But the fact that like I don't know, the cultists win and inevitability occurs, like it's pretty cool as opposed to an alternative.
I like the process of figuring out what's going on through a movie.
It does lend itself very nicely to that too, because they keep sort of bait and switching you throughout. Like, oh, it's this thing. The daughter, she's got creepy powers. Nope, that's not it. It's
It's tough to say because I'm of two minds about that right now. Because for at least a good half of the movie, I thought that it was kind of slow, mostly because of the fact that they were continuously moving the line in terms of what the movie was actually trying to like showcase.
Mhm.
Like, so it's like I understand the bait and switching aspect of it to try to keep you on your toes, but at the same time, it keeps me from like thematic like sequencing perspective from really understanding, okay, so when's the movie really going to pick up in terms of like the actual factual like issues that are happening. And the thing I like about this movie though is the fact that thinking about it retrospectively, it always is happening if the bodyguard guy or whoever at the funeral was already in on it. Like if I were to watch this movie again, would I then in the funeral scene pick out the people from the griefing counseling situation
Yeah, all these strange faces.
in the actual
Mhm.
funeral place, right? Like was the coven always going on,
Yeah.
Is this low key a sequel to The Witch wherein, she's actually the long running what was her name? What was the name of the
Fucking
little
name.
girl?
I don't remember. The Queen of Chess.
That one, yes, exactly.
Chess Queen.
She made a deal with Payment in order to be able to be so good.
At chess.
And that's where the Queen's Gambit situation
Oh
comes
shit!
from.
The witch goes into the Queen's. It's a trilogy. Hereditary, the witch, and then Queen's Gambit. Weirdest trilogy ever, but very cool.
Hey man,
Hey man, it took many moons for people to put it together, but Jose did it first.
there you go. Lethal introspection. We cut right through that bitch.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
This is
it's
how
made
you
by
get
the same
your Emmy.
production studio, right? It kind of looks well. This is like happening in Utah, right? I don't think they ever gave like a description of where they were at specifically, but they said that the set itself was made in Utah. Yeah. I liked it.
Yeah, Jose called it as soon as the movie ended. Jose called it, and I quote, "What a fun romp."
Yeah.
What a fun movie.
I especially like the decapitations. So jolly.
Extra points for decapitation. Up 1 on the rating scale.
The decapitation really surprised me because I thought they were gonna go for like a more like her head like nearly headless Nick situation where it
Right.
was like almost like only half off kind of thing.
Mhm.
Oh no, but clean off.
Oh, it was 100% clean. I can't believe that he was driving that fast. Oh, I guess I can. I mean, like
Yeah,
they
I
did
mean,
show
I
the
would
speedometer.
be.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
something, yeah.
whew.
I mean, can you imagine being like a paranoid teen and like, man, now your sister is dying because her throat's closing up because you left her alone at a party and she ate something with nuts in it? Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
he's paranoid AF.
And he just smoked a big old bong. You know what I mean? Like,
Big ol' bong.
Stoned out of his
Mhm.
mind, driving through the dark. Yeah.
and I was thinking, I mean, the movie does a really good job of self-insulating itself from plot holes because I was thinking, like, why didn't he call the police right then and there? But in his paranoid stoner teenage mind, he's like, well, we're at a party where people are drinking. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And I don't want to be the fucking lame-o that not only made his sister almost die from not taking care of her, but also got everybody busted when we got here, right? So I was very solid. There was no need for cultists there. Teenage stupidity handled that one just
They
fine.
let that fly.
So I wonder if that's why he didn't tell anybody, like why he just drove home after his sister was dead because he was stoned. Because if you call the police, you don't think so?
Oh no, go wait, I'm sorry.
Well, if he stops his car, because when I'm thinking, I assume a lot of us are thinking, well, he stopped there just realizing it hitting him that his sister is definitely dead.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh, he tries to talk back to her, and there's no sound, right? So it's like he's like still. It was really
He can
cool
barely
scene
even
because
get
he's
a word out of his
like
mouth.
the micro processings. You can really like. It was a really good moment of empathy, in my personal opinion.
it was.
Just-
We all go
yeah.
through that with him,
Mhm.
and then we think about what would we do.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were all saying it during the movie, like you can't just drive away. What are you going home for? You can't go to bed, dude. You know.
You're
Yeah.
fucking
Oh
up
my-
the crime scene or the
Yeah.
accident scene or
Every
however you want
single
to.
step of it after when he chooses to drive away, I'm like, wouldn't do that. I would not drive myself home. I would not crawl my ass into bed.
Well, if you think
I
about
would.
it,
I mean, I wouldn't be able to do anything honestly without trying to talk to my parents. You know.
Yeah,
Like-
it's tough because how how much does your mind snap in a situation like that where you just
If Payman's
You
already
do
inside
the
of her, is he
stupidest
inside of
things.
him
Well,
after she gets
maybe he guides, maybe he guides
decapitated?
him home.
Like maybe that's why he does all these weird things. Like
I think it's because he was stoned. If you call the police right then and they come to the crime scene, you know, it's going to get
Hannah, don't blame
twisted.
everything on the reefer madness.
I'm
Yeah.
not blaming it on the reefer
Reefer
madness. I'm saying that
madness!
he could go to jail super easily if somebody drug tests him.
I mean, they could still drug test his ass and they still find weed in
Well,
his system. You know what I mean?
Sure,
It's like,
but like if they show up and they're going through that, and then somebody's
just-
like, "Are you
it
Find
stoned?"
honestly-
weed on his floor,
in
man.
trouble.
This kid was like
You're in
open in his desk space. The door was open, just like packing a bong. What?
you know, there's something.
What?
There is a little bit of issue to be had in terms of the lack of police proceedings
Mm.
to the.
Yeah, weird.
I mean,
What
yeah, to the
happens when
death.
you defund the police, Jose?
Yeah, I guess so, right? But I mean, this was made in 2018, and we're still just fine, all right?
That's true.
Everybody was
we
cool.
were still
Yeah,
just
exactly.
fine. he said.
We were so cool with the police back then.
COVID hadn't even happened yet.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, it boggles the mind the fact that there was no report, no nothing, you know, especially if the body is officially found in the driveway,
Mhm.
you know? It's
Mm.
like, how was there no detective asking questions, you know?
Kind of gum up the movie.
Yeah. You think so?
I
How
mean,
long was the movie
I didn't
actually?
sign
2
up for
hours.
a
2 hours.
crime
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, it would most certainly gum up the works just a tiny
it
bit.
just brings a whole nother thing into it. It's cool that it's taken us 40 minutes for you to even mention it because it is a glaring problem with the movie.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that you notice it while you're watching it.
But
You
at
just
the
kinda-
same time, if again, the movie is really good at insulating itself from plot holes. What if the whole town is in on it? You know, what if it gets to the degree that the actual sheriff's office actually has either thralls, you know, like let's say that it goes with my situation and men get mesmerized by the witches, right? Like through the power of payment. Like men don't actually have power, but they can be like mesmerized and stuff. I don't
Jose
think
loves a world where like women are a controller and like men are just like listening.
I
Me
mean,
too.
the movie. The movie says that out loud, right? Like we can interpret it however we want, whether it's mankind or like women controlling men through the power of the witch's coven kind of situation, right? If I go with that direction, then it makes perfect sense that if they did orchestrate the pole accident, right, then they could also orchestrate the police not looking into it in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, just hand wave it away as an accident. Oh, it's an accident.
Yeah.
It happens. Yeah.
Easily.
Mhm.
I mean, they've got their fingers and everything else at this point.
Poor kid. Don't want to trouble him anymore. He's got enough on his mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what did you guys think about like the possession of Peter or whatever that was?
A little underwhelming.
In the classroom? Is that what you mean? The classroom scene?
Well, throughout the process, because he sees like the weird
Was
lights.
that possession, you think?
I think-
in the
There's
classroom.
a couple of different
When he
classrooms.
had
Why would Payman want to harm his own vessel though?
He probably wanted to get him out of school because they got to go do the thing. At
We've got a meeting.
Ooh, that's probably
this
really
is no
good
time
though.
for geography, history
That's
bullshit.
probably
We gotta-
really that's probably really good though. I mean, I believe
You
that.
buy that one? All right.
I totally buy that
It's
one.
not bad, right?
And he's got a schedule. I
Well-
love people who can keep to their schedule.
Well, and on
Like,
top
nope.
of
How do we get this kid out of here?
Yeah.
Fucking
Just smash. Holy crap. Okay.
Well,
yeah, I like
beyond-
that. I like that.
beyond the nose breaking scene though, before, like I think it was a day before or a couple of days before, when he looks over to his left and sees his reflection and it like smirks
It
at
smirks
him.
at him,
Mhm.
yeah. So by that point we can say then that Payman's like persona or whatever is like already beginning to like hover over him kind of
Mhm.
situation.
probably, yeah, hanging around him.
Is
Okay.
it, or is it like a hex?
Isn't it both? Because I mean the Joan, right? The new underboss witch,
Mhm.
you know, she has the active
Vice President Witch.
yeah, vice president. I don't know if they're elected. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm gonna
there's
say that they go. I'm
something.
gonna say that they do mafia rules where they're like underboss, boss, and you know what I mean, just captains of the coven.
Well,
you know,
but it looked like there was some.
Consigliere.
conciliaries. Yeah,
It
yeah.
looked,
Joan was obviously the conciliary of Queen Lay. You know,
Mhm.
it
'cause
looked like
she was
there
everywhere.
was some kind of ceremony though when she was flipping through the photo book. Like her grandmother, well, her mother, the kid's grandmother, was like all dressed in white.
Yeah, why
I
was she
love how they're
getting
all about
married or
taking
something?
pictures at the witch coven where they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna scrapbook the shit out of this."
Okay, ladies, summer solstice.
Witches love scrapbooking.
Oh fuck yeah!
They love collecting twigs.
I mean, if you think
and
back on the
scrapbooking.
ecstatic look on the grandma's face when she's like being coronated, you know what I mean? It looks like she just won a pageant. It's like, ah,
I feel so petty.
yeah.
I would like to thank my parents.
I had to decapitate them
Yeah.
both to receive this honor, so very heartfelt.
What was her note? What did her note say? Like the rewards will pale in, or the sacrifices we've made will pale with the rewards.
Thank goodness
Something
that
like that.
that it happened. That what happened the way it did actually when it comes to that note. Because when I read that note, I was like, damn, like they have to be making a deal with the demon in order for that language, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
to come out in that way.
Yeah.
You know.
Very temporal language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a kind of situation where that transcends dimensions, you know, like
We're like, what the fuck? Get the-
Yeah.
That's why she closed the book. She's like, I can get this shit out of here.
Which is amazing to me because if my mother was a very secretive woman and I found a note like that with a bunch of weird books,
mm-hmm.
I would spend all night there. Like I would look through everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it would be quite messed. Yeah, I mean, because she did mention
Oh.
in the eulogy how her mom was just a super secretive person. What's up, babe?
Oh no, I was wondering, and I didn't ask this question while we were watching it. But I am curious for you guys. Okay, so imagine you yourself are Peter. Your whole family's dead, right? And now you're in this tree house, and you need. I imagine that he's not yet possessed, and he potentially gets to make this decision on whether or not he's going to stay. Like, would you stay? Like, would you like hang out with this coven of people?
I don't
No,
think
he's
I don't think he
gone.
has a
Run
choice
away.
anymore because
He's run
before
away? Or his
when
mind?
he watched the body of his decapitated mother hover up into the treehouse,
Uh-huh.
he began to do the situation that Charlie used
It
to
wasn't
do.
only that. That
Mhm.
blue light centered
that
on his back and then
That's right.
disappeared into his
Oh,
back.
that's true. Yes.
And then
yes.
after that, he was no longer afraid. He had been
Mhm.
crying and afraid the whole movie.
Right.
But he embodied Charlie, or what we had seen as Charlie, actually, Payman, walking up into there. And then they called him Charlie when they were like, it's okay. So I think he was already
And,
possessed and gone.
So
Yeah.
then the answer is a resounding no from all three of you. You guys would not hang out with this coven, though.
If given the option.
Oh, I'm jumping on board.
I'm
No,
I mean, if I'm
you know
already
what being
living there.
possessed means?
if you're gonna look,
It's
if you're at
basically
work,
dying.
if you gotta be at work, you might as well enjoy it. Like,
It's tough to say, right? Because I mean, if there are demon kings,
I am Hell King.
right?
I am Hell King.
Yeah, if there are hell kings out there, right, and one of them lives in your neighborhood, and it obviously seems like God is not down to help whatsoever.
he's like, I don't want to touch that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, you might as well.
In your
know,
neighborhood.
I mean, listen, most gang initiations happen because people just happen to live in a particular neighborhood. So that's exactly what I would imagine would happen when it came to a cult situation, I mean, you consider that a mundane thing like joining the Crips or the Bloods, you know what I mean, isn't anywhere near as transcendent as having to join a witch coven, right? But just as real to the the lethality of your being. Because if you're not part of the coven, then you're fair game to be used in some way as either a sacrifice or or a pawn or thrall or whatever, right? So
Yeah, and I personally don't know the first thing about defeating a demon king from hell.
no.
If you can't beat him,
And what if he's the eighth one?
Join
There's
them?
a ton of them out there. Are you
Yeah,
kidding
one
me?
of
You said
them.
it,
Yeah.
Hannah. You said it.
What if they hold grudges? What if they're like Daedric princes where they don't like each other, but like, oh, we won't let you do that to them. Yeah, like,
go
They
steal
have
this
gang
dog.
wars.
Yeah.
Oh, the dog.
Yeah, all right.
oh, I was gonna ask actually, like, which Daedric prince do you guys think this like payment like most resembles in terms of like the situation happening? Like, in my personal
Yeah.
opinion, I would have to say it's like Moloch Ball.
I was gonna say Moloch Ball too.
It's either him or Sheogorath, right? Because Sheogorath is also like a trickster kind
Trickster.
of.
Yeah. He'd just come out at the end and be like,
Personality.
just kidding. Everyone go home.
Is Sheogorath the one who has like the pinstripe suit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Kingdom of
that's who I
Madness.
think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
With the
who I
cat
think
eyes.
of
Mhm.
right away.
Stop killing yourselves.
Yeah. You-
Go home.
That's good.
What's it?
Yeah, I think so. It's
Well, thank you.
been a
I'll be
solid
here all
6
week.
months though since I played ESO. So
ESO,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, it was because I mean, holy shit, like just the the meta issues when it comes to like living in a universe like that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's so scary, like because it really does mean that you are a pawn at any given moment to whatever like whim these other fucking hell kings might have on you. It's like, ah.
Ugh.
Who wants to worry about
I already
that?
have
Yeah.
so much to do.
Mhm.
I gotta mow my lawn and worry about health.
Yeah. don't my taxes cover that too?
Jesus
Like, how is the government not on top of that? Like,
Where's my Hell King insurance?
yeah.
Be especially bullshit if you were a religious person. Be like, I tithe.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers, you're supposed to deal with it. Where's
Yeah.
the nearest priest?
Honestly, it would be pretty much like God maintains like a mafia protection, and then he just doesn't actually protect you once once they come and mess you up. That'd be so screwed. I mean, it makes sense because these people seem like they were pretty irreligious
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they didn't seem particularly into that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Just ripe for the taking.
so was the like cutting off of the pigeon head, other than being foreshadowing, of course, was that like for one of her toys? Do you think for
Yeah.
Charlie when she cut the pigeon head off with the scissors?
Well, she cut the pigeon head off and then took it. She took it with herself to
She
that
stuffed
place
it
that
in
she
her
was
pocket.
to that burning effigy that was out in the field. You know, was that a hallucination or was that real?
Mhm.
You know, because when her mother came and grabbed her and she's like, "What are you doing barefoot?" She didn't look that way to be able to confirm whether it was real or not.
I like to think it was real and that we just caught that her mom caught her hours after the fact.
Mm.
I like
Hours
to think of
after
it that
that.
way. You know, like
Or like some time dilation at play.
something like
In the
that. Yeah.
scene.
Perhaps it wasn't even the same day that we're even thinking of. Maybe she's compelled to walk back out there again. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
because the
that's what
lady
was
looked like her
bugging me
grandmother,
more.
perhaps from behind, or at least an older lady
Oh,
from
I think
behind.
it must have been.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, especially now that we know that there are cultists out and about throughout the entirety of the town. You know, it is very difficult to say what is like a hallucination and what actually was created by these people in order to be able to slowly whittle their psyche down.
Mhm.
You know, like if there has to be a particular level of pliability in terms of your ability to be able to accept the fact that there are hell kings or whatever the fuck, you know, in order for these things to move forward, right? Because I mean, Joni had to get the candle into the home first, and she had to get the incantation in first, right? Before anything happened.
Mhm.
So it's like, so there has to be a willingness there in order for it to be able to begin manifesting itself, right? So it's like symbiotic almost. Like it's symbiotic at first and then parasitic afterward, where like payment, once you open the threshold enough, it'll fall right in and pretty much eat you, like absorb you once.
so stupid question.
No such things in this podcast.
When Joni is with, oh man, Annie, I remembered it. When Joni and Annie are together and she's showcasing the fact that she can bring her son Louis, which to be honest with you guys,
Grandson.
I kept thinking Louis, Louis every time she kept screaming his name. I'm so sorry. That's why I was laughing while we were
No
watching
wonder
it.
you're not scared at any point. Oh, baby.
There
we
was
got
like
it.
at least in like 5 minutes there were like song references and I couldn't stop laughing. But do you think, is she really summoning Louis or is she then summoning Paimon?
I don't think she even has a son and grandson
You think
that
that's
are
all
dead.
a lie, right?
Yeah,
Probably
because
Okay. That's
you
what I
know
was
all the
wondering.
cultists were at the the loss intervention situation.
Yeah, which was basically a fake town, like a fake Western town.
I mean,
Yeah.
a
That's
lot
what
of
that
this
whole
was very
group was.
Truman Showy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they were
Yeah,
very
good
like,
reference.
you know, everything was pretty staged for her.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to think about it, Kimmy. Because I mean, that is exactly the kind of feeling that she has throughout the entire thing, where it's like it's all manufactured, right? But at the same time, the people within are making her feel like she's crazy about it.
Maybe that's why she makes the houses with all the little scenes, is because it feels manufactured to her in her subconscious.
Oh shit! And she's like.
Oh man,
projecting
back to
that.
this predetermination situation.
Mhm.
That's a
That
good
also
call.
makes me
It's a good
wonder
read.
if like you guys were saying before, like if we rewatch these scenes, how many of the high schoolers will see in other scenes. You know what I mean? Potential like plants and stuff like that. Just because when you think about all the people in this town, right? Everyone seems to be in on it with the exception of Annie's actual family and the people inside of the school. Because those are all of the rest of the people that we see. There is some sort of plant somewhere. Isn't there?
You
Like
think in
from
one
the
of
funeral to the place where she does her, grief meetings to, I mean, like everywhere. The
I wish
school's
there
the
would've-
only place.
I wish there would have been some sort of like time linchpin. You know what I mean? In the sense of like hurrying, like like some meta thing to hurry things along in relation to why things have to like be so predestined. Like let's say that Payman can only come back on a lunar eclipse, right? That is coming up, and as a result of that, we come to realize that's why the grandma killed herself almost, you know what I mean, in order to begin the process of having her body ritualized and decapitated to be able to open the first seal that would then allow Charlie to then, die, that would then open, the next seal that would then allow Peter to be overtaken by Payman within the span of the lunar eclipse kind of situation that then causes that, which is why all of the people convene right then and there at that moment. You know, as it stands, I think it just feels a little random, you know what I mean? Because it seems like they've been living in that house for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, what is it about now that's making the plan have to come to fruition, especially if Charlie has been alive for 13 years? You know what I
Do
mean?
you think Charlie knew that Payman and her were like combined? Because she asks after the funeral, who is going to protect me now that grandma is gone? And she's like, her mom's like,
Yeah.
what about me?
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, what about when you die? And she's like, okay, well, then your dad and then your brother. And then
Like,
what
you
I
can't
thought
do
about
shit.
the reason why I giggled during that scene was kind of like, well, be real with your daughter. Be like, listen, at one point I will die. And just like my mom's died now, like you will be an adult. You know, like why not have that conversation then, which sounds silly because it's a horror film, not a drama. But like, I think of that as like an opportune moment to have that discussion.
It's a pretty dramatic horror film, to be honest. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of action per se.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. I think it would have fit well within it, especially because then that could have been used as a foil to the fact that, no, that's not the way it's happening. Like, this
Mhm.
is a predestined situation, and she actually is very right to be afraid. You know, like, even though what you're saying in a mundane world would be 100%, on the money,
Mhm.
in this situation, no. Like,
Well,
you're
yeah,
actually
agreed.
screwing your daughter up by making her.
But
think
then,
that.
so then, do you think that Charlie knew that her and Payman were intertwined?
I think yes,
13.
because I think that scene showcases that Charlie has more awareness than any other scene in the movie. Because I think she either knows what's going to happen by that comment,
Mhm.
or she knows that she doesn't have to worry about death. Like she'll continue to be alive, and her mom will die, and she'll outlive her no matter what. But another
Hmm.
thing too is when that pigeon hits the window in her classroom, she's the only kid that didn't flinch or look. So she has awareness to things that happen and seems to know that some things are going to happen. So she must know that. She must know she's different to some capacity.
I would imagine the grandma would have let it slip too. You know, like if they really did spend that much time together
Oh, yeah.
to the degree that she's like the mom by proxy now,
Mhm.
and the grandma obviously has told her that she's protecting her from
Mhm.
something. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To the degree that the girl is anxious now that she's dead about what she was, about her mom's inability to keep protecting her from that. So it's like I would have to imagine that if she didn't say the word payment outright, she probably insinuated it heavily, you know?
Oh yeah.
Especially if she knew that her grandma had desires to have her have been a boy, you know? Like,
Yeah, I think I think she's either really aware of it as a person or that it's literally just payment in there and not the little girl. And that's who we're communicating with.
like the whole time?
Maybe.
So you think there never was a Charlie? Like a Charlie persona in and of itself?
I
And it
think
was
that's
always just an enmeshing of payment inside of this body kind of situation?
I think that's a distinct possibility. And it could either be that it's just like, like playing coy or playing dumb because it's in the body of a child because never cried as a baby seems sus to me.
Mhm.
Or even
Like
maybe
it
that
knew of
there's
its
like,
situation. Like, okay, I'm in this
Yeah.
body now.
Yeah.
Alright. Time to incubate, pretty much.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be a couple years still.
like I need people to care for me until
Mhm.
I'm able to do this thing on my own. And she's still like a pretty small child, so she still needs some level of care.
Yeah, to your point earlier about there being like a timeline thing, it does kind of it makes me wonder about the predestination sort of aspect of it because like we do get the little bit of backstory of it seems like maybe the cult as a whole or just Payman has been trying to get to like a male vessel for a while through Annie's brother
Mm-hmm.
probably first, and who knows before that.
Right.
So yeah, that's an interesting question of like, why wait till she's 13, or like why now? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also curious where Payman was in the time frame where it wasn't
Where Charlie wasn't
Annie's
alive.
brother. Yeah,
Right.
from because like Annie's brother dies and then Charlie is born.
Right. That's a
Right,
long
like
time.
there's a good distance in between there because already you know that Charlie and Peter are 4 years apart because he's 17 and she's 13.
I would say that
Mhm.
what probably is happening throughout that whole time is Payman whispering into the grandma's ear, being like, create this coven, orchestrate this whole situation in order to
She's
be
an
able to have it happen.
So she's an old lady when she's in those photos, like with her in that wedding dress esque situation. Why do you think she looks like she's going to a wedding?
Oh, I think that's just with the way the coven is dressed.
It's like
Everybody
a
else was dressed like
celebration
that
dress.
too?
She was dressed like that by herself, but
Yeah,
I do
'cause she's
think
the
it was
queen.
some kind of
She's
ceremony.
Queen Lay. So I think that
Sure.
I think she was wearing all white because it distinguishes her as queen, or like as mother, mate, like as
Mm.
mother of the coven or whatever. That's the only thing I could think of.
You
Well,
get
yeah,
Because
to
it
she's
wear-
does
also
look
in the
like she's
middle.
distinguished, right, in terms of their hierarchy.
Mhm.
I mean, they call her Queen Lay. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm watching a lot of American Horror Story, so she's like a supreme.
yeah, she would be the supreme, yep, of that particular. Yeah, it's really.
Maybe they move her when she is 13 because the grandma died. Like she doesn't have her caretaker anymore. We need to move her to an able-bodied because she's got crazy peanut allergies. She could just die. She's in a shit
This body
host.
just sucks.
I'm small
We
and
gotta
get the
feeble.
fuck
Nobody
outta
takes
here.
me seriously.
Yeah, that's so funny. The idea of like a fucking 8th demon king from hell, and he's like, peanuts, no,
Oh God damn it!
not peanuts.
Maybe that's the what's it called, the crutch of payment, right? Where it's like, the so powerful but brought down by simple mischievous, small things like that. You know what I mean? Because I would imagine that would have to be some form of like ironic like issue with its power, right? Where it's
Mhm.
like it can like like there's this play that I really really like called The Tragedy of Man that showcases Lucifer in it. It's pretty much the entirety of like human existence, and Lucifer is like the main protagonist essentially throughout the whole thing, alongside Adam. And in it, Lucifer says that his power is the fact that the more he loses, the more powerful he is. So at the very beginning of creation, right, when God first created everything, he was at his weakest. I mean, he was losing the most, but he was most powerful at that point and most able to move by suggestion. And as time moved along and he actually made Adam become nihilistic and stop believing in God and like believing in the plan, the quote unquote plan, Lucifer himself was like, oh, maybe we should stop this, because he felt that he was getting so close to winning that he was beginning to feel weak as a result of that.
Oh, cool.
So
Okay.
I would wonder, right, like how much of like, yeah, an ironic spin there is to the powers of the Demon King, where it's like it can become so powerful because of the fact that its realm is that of mischief, like that's also what brings them down, at the same time. Just small little things, just small little inconveniences that would actually fall in. We're being like, oh shit, like I was gonna get a body 30 years ago, but then, like he caught on to it and he killed himself before I was able to do it. You know what I mean? Now I gotta wait 30 more years before like the
fuck.
next one. You know what I mean? It's like,
That does make the movie funnier.
It's very fun to watch horror movies with Jose.
Yeah. Why do you think we do this?
Well, I mean, as someone who lets him talk throughout the film, he really breaks, whatever kind of wall I need to be
The
broken
tension?
for me to not feel so like anxious all the time. Also, because oftentimes I'm thinking the same things. I'm just kind of like trying to be immersed into the film, and when things break that immersion, I'm just like, well, what a load of crock.
honestly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do try to make myself be lost in the fiction.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
I try my very best to try to leave any form of like earthly consideration of what it means for things to be real or not real in my mind. It's
Mm.
like, okay, fill me in on your universe. What's the rules of your universe? You know what I mean?
What are the rules?
Yeah, exactly. And
I
what's
was
happening here?
excited and anxious to be scared in front of you guys because uh I almost didn't come today, and then earlier in the week Jose was like, yeah, talk to Hannah, check it out, and I never said anything. I was like, I'll just go. And then earlier today I was having anxiety about it, and I was like, I don't want to go. But I showed up, and then when I did show up, Matt and Hannah were both like, yeah, this is actually a pretty scary one. I'm surprised you showed up. And I was like, oh no.
Well, it's because it's
Oh,
a
no.
classic horror movie, and that's not actually what you're afraid of. So
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah. Because I mean, I've seen all of I have seen a lot of, I guess, horror films. Like my friends made me watch growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
And most of those are just kind of like, you think they're scarier than they really are. Just like, I thought I knew what this movie was about, even though I've definitely seen clips of it before in the past. And clearly I did not know what it was about at all. So,
no, and this is really a movie where you need to get the full picture to
Mhm.
really know what this movie is about. You don't really know unless you've watched the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult because at the same time, it's like the the thing that you liked about it, Matt, in sense of like the bad guy wins kind of situation, like the coven wins. Like, how did like how does that play into like the scariness of it? You know what I mean? It's like because most of the times, right? Like what you guys said you didn't like was the cliche of there being like a positive ending to like all of the horror that happened prior to.
Mhm.
But it's like, but for the most part, I mean, like, it's that catharsis, what I mean, that's supposed to bring the whole ride to kind of a quote unquote satisfactory end in relation to, like a horror situation.
Mhm.
But in this one, it's like with the coven winning, right? It's like, okay, like what are we left with? You know what I mean? In terms of you know,
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily adds to the scariness
Mm.
or anything like that. I just think it's cool. Like it's cool.
does it detract
refreshing.
from the scariness
Yeah.
though? I mean, like,
think it's
does it? Because if it doesn't add, does it detract from it? The fact that the bad guy wins in that way, like,
You could
I really think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you could make an argument for like it's kind of neat if you when you watch any horror movie or sci-fi or whatever, you offer up a little bit more willingness to disbelieve. So then you get that if you're sort of in this like mindset of like or if you're like you're believing like, oh, this shit could be real, blah blah blah, then it's like even a little bit scarier that like, fuck, the demons win, like they're too strong, we can't do anything. Actually, we're predestined to fail against the demons because I don't know, they have magic and we don't. So
I mean, I really think it does neither. I think the scary part of a scary movie happens in the middle. And whether that's scary
Mhm.
or not is completely determined by itself.
Mhm.
I do think a not necessarily quote unquote happy ending does make a scary movie memorable, and it makes it a little bit better, not making it scarier, more scary or less scary. But I also think that there is something that is lost sometimes on good scary movies when they make it really scary and then they give it a happy ending that is this isn't realistic. Like you
mhm.
just showed me the most horrific thing in the world and then the humans won and it's happily ever after, and I think that does take away from the scariness sometimes, or at least the ability for the movie to be as memorable as it could have
It
been.
drives too fast into happy ending town, pretty much, from
It happens
being
in the
so
last
far off
10
in like
minutes.
Scaryville kind of
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah,
It's
every
Yes.
time.
and now we're over here.
That's just
Like,
it. Is it's like they spend the whole time making the movie scary. They work it up slow. They make it scarier and scarier, so that they can ease you into it.
you should
And
say
then it's-
nod into the mic as you do.
I'm sorry. Well, no, I 100% agree with everything Hannah's saying. The scariest part of a scary movie is in the middle or towards the beginning when you really don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
Like all the little teeny things, something where it's like the camera, it stays on a character for an extra second. And you're like looking in the background. You're like,
Yeah.
what's back there? Like that stuff, those moments creep me out more than when I actually do find something back there.
Yep.
Because I feel like I'm searching really hard and I'm missing something. Like those things freak me out. And then having a story in general that where not just a horror movie, but like a story in general where it ends where the bad guy wins, it's incredibly refreshing. Like that's how I feel. It's like you don't really see those ever. And it's, to be honest with you, like, is it Murphy's Law? No, not Murphy's Law. What is it like?
Anything that
Occam's
can
razor.
go wrong will go
Occam's
wrong.
razor, where it's like the
Yes.
simplest answer is usually the one that's correct.
Yep. The
The
one
The
that takes
simplest
the
answer
fewest
in this
assumptions.
movie is that the cultists win.
Yeah.
And that for me seems more realistic and more
Less ass pulley kind of
yeah.
situation.
Then if like, oh, Toni Collette is the only one who survived.
Right.
Or
so
it was
like-
all in her head, right? Because
Yeah.
because that would have been a huge issue for me because the things that happened in the movie transcended her mind, right? I
Correct.
mean, like it transcended her locality, it transcended everything, you know what I mean? So even though the movie did a really good job of, laying down the light bait that perhaps, it could be like a mental psychosis or a mental breakdown situation. They never put so many chips in that pile, right? To make it feel like it's a pull out of like a complete rug pull, you know what I mean? When it's not that at all, when it
Yeah.
is a 100% supernatural thing.
Mhm.
It just kind of let you be like, okay, maybe she's crazy, like the whole time, you're always kind of giving her that side eye of being like, okay, like we're right there with you. Like we saw what you saw, but we don't have your mental issues.
I don't always want a complex ending or kind of like a Scooby-Doo whodunit, like mask falls off the face kind of deal.
Mhm.
Like I just want to see, okay, yeah, no, nobody won technically. Technically the cultists win, I guess, but like that for me makes it much more.
I mean, the end of a story that fits with the rest of the story. Because what you find the most commonly in, possession films is like, we send the Hell King back to hell.
Yeah.
And that's really disappointing to me because I don't think that's realistic. I think it's a bit of a letdown when you see it.
Jose's letting our dog out. Sorry for
playing
the
dog.
delay in talk here. We're trying so hard to be good, but it's.
We're a dog-friendly podcast. what we can always
Dog-friendly
say.
podcast,
That comes
yes.
with sacrifices.
We also have a senior dog. She pees a lot. Or she, pretends like she's got to pee and then just sniffs outside for about 5 minutes before she realizes, oh, you fell for it.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly. She's like, ha ha. And then we come back in.
And I got to go outside.
Um,
But yeah, that does beg the other question that I have kind of throughout this podcast is the main character Annie's psychosis, like her sleepwalking, her trying to burn the children alive. Where is that coming from?
Ooh, maybe that is the only little hint of divine intervention that we get.
Ooh.
Maybe that's literally Yahweh, like trying to control her
Ah.
through her
You
sleep.
have to say Yahweh
I know,
every
God.
time.
What? I don't want it to be confused with some
dear
other.
Lord.
For those who aren't Bible historians, Matt's talking about God. God.
God.
And if you're not a Bible historian, it's okay. I understand you. I'm probably one of the 4 people in the room who, never fully read the Bible. So,
Oh, that's
Oh.
okay.
yeah.
You might be the only one.
I
can
do
speak
believe-
for Jose.
I do believe there are excerpts of the Bible that I had to read. My family's Roman Catholic and I went to Sunday school and I had confirmation and, communion and all that stuff. So I probably have read most of the Bible, but did I study it? No.
This is actually a really interesting point because she, at least in a dream, tells us that she tried to kill Peter in the womb, or at least tried to do everything wrong to
Mhm.
lead to a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then she literally almost set them all on fire,
Mm-hmm.
right? That
Well,
could be like,
That's just it though, is maybe something knows, whether it's like, another outside entity or it's actually Annie's character subconsciously from her upbringing or things she picked up on that she
Right.
didn't realize or past traumas that she's blocked.
Mhm.
But something in her seems to know that there's something very dangerous traveling through her children. Because, like, trying to burn both of them says 2 things, really. Because it's like, it's not just Charlie, so it's not just the vessel for the demon or the Hell King. It's also like her male child, who she probably to some degree knows is coveted as a vessel. So it would be just getting rid of the whole problem all at once. And she, like covered herself in paint thinner as well, probably because it would be too much to bear that she burned her children.
Right. And
Jose, to catch you up, we're talking about the trauma from Annie's background and the fact that she, while sleepwalking, tried to burn her children alive.
Are you guys saying that that was a subconscious act on her part to try to keep payment from taking over her?
Matt called it
child?
divine intervention.
Yeah,
It's like the only...
either that's our one hint at a divine finger coming
Man,
in.
God sucks in this reality. Holy shit. The best he can do is just make you burn yourself alive.
And
And then he
it
can't
doesn't
even get it
work.
done.
And he's like, well, I give up.
Yeah.
He doesn't contact
what?
the
The best
police.
one I
He
got.
just
Burning
gives them
bush,
like
Burning
emotionally
Man. I mean, that's
unstable
the only thing I can
Toni
think of.
Collette.
If you can't light it on fire, I don't know. What to do.
I don't know what to do. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Fire and brimstone. Man.
Would you like me to drown the whole town? Because I mean, I can do that.
No, but like my running theory though is that Annie knows more than she realizes. I think she has past traumas that she's buried, and that results in her sleepwalking. And that's what results in her trying to burn her children alive while she's sleepwalking as well, because she has some indication like deep within her that either one is like either there's a vessel for a demon there, or it's like, or she knows more thoroughly that one of her children is a demon and the other one is a potential other vessel.
Well, if what we mentioned prior about her family history and her brother potentially being the last potential vessel, she's gone through this before, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is most certainly not her first rodeo in the Coven's attempt to try to get a new body for payment. So it could very well be that, as you're saying, I mean, she's like kind of unleashing some like hidden like and like
Buried trauma.
buried trauma and like buried instinctual like moves, you know what I mean, that like might have, maybe kept her safe all of this time, up until now.
Yeah, like her subconscious mind just has a lot more than she realizes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reads pretty well.
I mean, that all being said, I feel like we've pretty thoroughly discussed this movie. Is it time to go around with ratings?
Can I go last?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
I know
surprised.
he wanted to start with me. He was like, yeah, can we go ahead? And I'm like, no, I want to go last.
Well, I'll go first since
Okay.
I recommended this one. The second viewing, I think this is my second viewing. Way better
Looks at
than,
Hannah to like make her approve.
This is her third
Yeah.
viewing, so this is your and this is your
Nod.
second?
I think it's my second. Yeah, nod. Definitely better than the first because you get to see all the little hints that they're dropping along. Like I don't think I saw the telephone pole rune on the telephone pole the first time, so that was pretty cool.
I still didn't see that. Good catch.
Yeah.
I remember coming out of this the first time thinking like, damn, what a fucking cool movie. And I feel pretty much the same. A little bummed out that, I don't know, we got the chattiest Kathys on the fucking movie watching planet to go through it with, but that's fine. That's fine. So it was a 5-star when I first, it's still there for me. There's nothing about this movie that I dislike as far as like just general film likes and dislikes. And when it comes to horrors, fucking home run. So yeah,
All right.
suck on it. No,
Suck on that 5.
All right.
5-star.
So that's that's a seasoned review. Now, me having seen it for the first time, I'm still churning through it, honestly. I can't say that it's a 5 out of 5 just because there were some things that I don't know. I think the biggest thing that keeps me from giving it a 5 out of 5 is just the dad just felt like such a vestigial character, and even though I don't want just that one character to really dampen my feeling about the whole situation. It's like he was so in the movie, that the fact that there wasn't anything about him that played a significant role kind of bugs me,
Jose's really upset about this underwritten male character.
Yeah,
so-
exactly. Males don't get enough representation in Hollywood, and
Oh,
this is already
no.
beginning.
Mute him. Turn off his mic. He's done.
One can only hope he's been accidentally muted this whole time.
I get it. Egalitarian, right on.
Yeah, 100%, right? I'm a feminist. I
Me
want,
too, man.
for
Hold on,
100%,
muted the
Mute
system.
the
100%
Fuck.
thematic significance for both sexes, all right? And as far as I understand, this movie makes males be thralls.
Yeah, it is sort of a meta statement on like,
Now
know,
he's
the
like
men in this-
1.2 out of 5.
How does that feel to have the men be thralls?
As a meninist, I don't know how I feel.
Get out.
And this was the last episode of Introspection.
I'd say 4 out of 5. Yeah, I mean, I think a whole point is dropped because of the dad section. Maybe that's like about a quarter star for me. Like I feel that if there would have been something about him that like was necessary or like catalytic, you know what I mean, to like to him, I felt it would have been better. Or if he would have gotten the authorities involved, then he would have been able to be the foil that made like the mundane world and the supernatural world like slam each other, right? Like, but there was nothing like that, He was left very vestigial. And on top of that, I am never the biggest fan of predestination stories just because of the fact that they require a lot of coincidence threading, And again, this movie does a great job of insulating itself from plot holes. Like I said, like we can go through it, and the fact that the cultists do essentially feel like they've overtaken the whole town, does cover them. At the same time, it pulls on the threads of believability, even from the perspective of a horror movie. The fact that they would be so deeply ingrained, and that even then it would still take this long for Payman to find a new avatar or whatever.
Avatar.
Well, he keeps trying, but they fucking kill themselves or go crazy or
They're not strong
Right.
enough. They're not the good vessels.
So yeah, 4
Yeah,
out
I
of
hear
5.
you.
Yeah. And maybe it could go up to a 4.5 once, I've really like let it sit, but it is what it is at the moment.
Mm. Oh, this would be a fun, as an aside, maybe end of the year or something, we could do a special episode and rethink or go through everything we've done and just sort of touch on it and see what we think.
Like
You
watch
know.
all the movies at
No,
once.
no, just a
I was
general
like,
discussion.
Dude.
Everybody
pull up
takes
our
6
list.
days off work.
Get some caffeine. Yeah, but anyway.
Hannah.
I give this movie a 5. I'm torn a little bit between a 4.5 and a 5, but this movie it's truly unforgettable for me. This is one that's stuck in my mind, and I really enjoyed watching it again. I enjoy the dad character. I enjoy his dynamic a little bit because what I see with him is a lot of mental strain between how to keep his family together and what's the safest thing for his family. And I think you see him kind of burying that and putting he holds his wife after their daughter dies. And he's always supporting her, and he's literally thrown over her holding her as she wails and screams, and it's his kid too. So I get the impression that he's incredibly self-sacrificing and he doesn't know what to do for his family.
And you never
until it-
see his work because he honestly probably is never working through this time frame of his wife's mom's dying,
No,
his
probably not.
daughter dying. Tony Collette works the entire time.
Yep. Yeah, and he
I
comes
still like to believe he's a bum.
he checks in on her a lot though, and that I think gives his character a little bit of extra depth, not as much as the other characters by any means. I also agree that this movie starts slow a little bit, but for me it makes up for it. Because it doesn't feel like a horror until at least halfway through at all. It feels like a drama. So, yeah, I'll give it a 5. I am torn a little bit between a 4.5 and a 5, but this is one of my up there horror movies.
Tepid perfection.
Mediocre brilliance.
Yeah, exactly. Mediocrely brilliant.
Special guest Kimmy.
Yeah. So Hannah's review made me change my review.
Oh.
good.
To a 2.
No,
no.
it got better because of it. I will not lie, as the two of you were talking about it, I was deciding whether or not I would say 3.2 or 3.7. And the reason why I initially thought that is because I thought this movie was going to spook me. So much so where I was going to be upset. Oh, Jose, you're going to be up till 8 a.m. because I'll be up to 8 a.m. I really wasn't that afraid of it. And the
Thank
themes
God.
didn't make me afraid of it either. But Hannah talking about it, how it's more of a drama. I do actually see it more. It has more value looking at it in that perspective, I think, than anything else. It is. I can give it more value thinking of it as a thriller rather than thinking of it as a horror. You know, and that's where like
I agree.
Hannah, we talk about like
Mhm.
what's scary to me. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't like horror, but I like thrillers. I would have categorized this as a thriller in my mind because nothing about this is horrific. You know, like it's gory for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but like I don't find horror really in many of these scenes. There was one point where I like had my hands over my eyes, and that was towards the end when there was definitely like decapitated bodies. You know, and I was like, well, I don't really want to see that.
Yeah.
But that's about it, you know, like it, you know. So I would say I have from Hannah's review moved it from like teetering to definitely under a 4 to a 4.
Nice.
I will give it a 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see myself watching this movie a second time. Not because I'm afraid of it, just because I don't feel that it's necessary to me. If I did watch anything another time, it would definitely be all those scenes with the high schoolers, just because I'm so curious if any of those scenes have any body.
Or if that height of the history teacher was in the coven too.
Man.
Oh my!
You know?
Good question.
Good question.
Yeah, so maybe
I'll say.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering, yeah, like, you know, that's the thing. It's like, how deep does it get? And it's like, it's tough because, you know, plot hole insulators like that, right? When it comes to like a cult overtaking a whole town kind of situation, like a Lovecraftian, you know what I mean? Like Innsmouth-y kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's good from the writer's perspective because, again, you've insulated yourself from plot holes. Okay, the cults, you know, got their fingers in every pie kind of situation. But then, I mean, for me, it does pull a stretch on believability just because of the fact that there was never any scenes that showcased, you know what I mean, like the extent of the power of the coven. Or it would have been cool to be able to see, like, you know, like if there would have been a scene with the police, like coming in, doing a police report. And then the police maybe being flippant about the whole situation. Be like, oh, no, we're not booking him in. Don't worry about it. Kid looks traumatized enough already. You know what I mean? Like that kind of situation where like the powers that be of our reality, you know what I mean, have already been overtaken by the supernatural aspects and there really is no recourse anymore. At this point, I'm still wondering if calling the police and shooting these motherfuckers would have worked. You know what I mean? Like
temporarily.
Honestly, I'm glad the power of the coven was kind of kept behind the curtain.
Okay.
Because I can't imagine a scenario in which they showed us that where I didn't feel like it ruined the movie like every other horror movie.
Okay.
Because I just think keeping some things in the dark for me creates a better movie.
Mhm.
Because they always try to showcase everything with a huge curtain
They try to
call.
tell too much.
Yeah, at the end of a horror movie, and it never adds up.
I think that bringing like the police into a situation like this would have, in the sense of like storytelling, like really elongated it because you talk about that and for some reason, and I think it's also because I've been thinking about rewatching Twin Peaks, but that reminds me a lot of Twin Peaks and like how honestly a lot of that story is drawn out because like the cops are very heavily involved, you know what I mean? And if they removed that, sure, like a lot of that like detective mystery building would be gone, but then we would be left with the same kind of like supernatural, like, what is all of this kind of mystery instead.
At least this one has a coherent ending. I don't. Did Twin Peaks make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank God.
No, it didn't.
No, we're not. You're not about to.
I got sucked
you're
in
not
in
about to be
season
given
1
any
and I was like,
epiphany
ooh,
here.
there's a season 2. And then we
Double
kept
feature.
going and I had to rewatch that last episode. And then, you know, and then I watched YouTube videos about it.
And it hasn't stopped since.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I want to rewatch it, guys. But,
No, you're entitled,
Glad I
right,
came
Hannah?
for
I mean,
this one.
it's so difficult, right? Because I mean, I can sit here and try to script doctor the situation to try to make certain things feel more okay to me. But you're right in the sense that already it stretches the realms of believability, and then showcasing it so concretely that they do have their finger in every pie. You know what I mean? Might actually rip. You know what I mean? These threads that did manage to be able to at least keep all the way to the end. You know what I mean? And from the perspective of the creator, that's all they wanted, right? I mean, they don't give a shit if I keep believing in it after the movie's done, as long as within the realm of the movie, like I'm still, you know, enraptured or enthralled by it. You know, and as a man, I can't help it. Apparently,
Yeah.
I'll just be
As a Mennonist.
mesmerized the way as a Mennonite.
He's fighting it. He should have been a 5.
Yeah. I do want to say one last time though, Toni Collette just chef's kiss.
Oh my
like,
God.
oh my,
Mhm.
can she do no?
You
Can
rocked
she do
it.
wrong? I
I
don't
don't
think so.
think so.
I don't think it's possible.
Hopefully we'll see more of her in the future. But this has been great. Great takes all around. Thanks for joining us again, Kimmy.
Yeah.
Fun episode.
Very fun. And,
Yeah. What are we doing next?
That's a great question.
Your idea was Osmosis Jones. I've got a hankering for
Ooh.
the invitation.
Mm.
I don't know what the
TBD.
invitation is. I would watch Aliens.
Oh yeah, we do
So-
have to Aliens and then a couple more there.
Yeah.
I've also
Um,
been told to stop after we watch Aliens, that I shouldn't watch anymore.
Probably
Um,
not.
So we don't know. Listeners, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Watch all of those movies and then
Yeah.
join us next time.
And then
Yeah.
then you'll be up to
So
date.
we can surprise you with something else.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep,
Everybody
yep,
have a
bye.
great night.
Good night.
Bye. All right.